I was in my internship year, and my supervisor and I kept butting heads because I was trained in the traditional child-centered play therapy kind of approach with a bit of positive psychology in there. And my natural ability, which at the time I didn't know what it was very much solution focused based. I felt very useless in the therapy room, to be honest with you, trying to do it the right way, like I was trained, tracking, doing all those good things that we've been taught to do. And I just felt like I wasn't getting anywhere. And this child was going to stay with me until they're 18, And the one thing I really didn't like was that at the time, I didn't have children. I wasn't a parent myself. And it really felt uncomfortable to sit in that expert kind of seat about a child with a parent, about a child that they obviously know and I don't. And that didn't sit well with me. And I really didn't like it. So what happened was I attended a workshop in South Africa. I was trained there by Jackie van Zifferberg. She's worked very closely with Elliot. And she introduced me to the solution focused world, and that was it. I was hooked, and I went to every single training she had. I did the brief training online. Every time Elliot came to South Africa, he was in love with South Africa. I think he kept coming back and presenting workshops, and I attended every single one. And so my passion grew, and I contributed to a book that Jackie wrote, and this is just what I've been doing. And it does, it kind of becomes a part of your life and the way you think and the way you interact. And so that's my story. And then we moved here to Vancouver 2 years ago, and I met Beverly, and thankfully, so I was able to stay in the solution focused world and continue. The talk that I'm going to share with you today was actually initially designed for parents and teachers to help children manage anxiety. So coming from the context I came from South Africa, anxiety is very prevalent for different reasons, trauma, crime, just the way life is. And I thought it's very particular to that setting. Then I came to Vancouver and realized, actually, no, anxiety is prevalent everywhere. It just looks different, and it's for different reasons, because of course it's subjective. It's how you're experiencing your world, right? So, and I saw the need for these kind of talks and workshops, and so I developed this. So a lot of it for you, if you're practitioners and clinicians, might be things that you already know, but hopefully it's just a different perspective on how to do play therapy with the solution-focused lens, really. So I'm going to dive right in for the fear of running out of time, because I can go off at a tangent sometimes. So I'm just going to share the screen with you. Okay, I'm going to share the screen now. Oh, it said host has disabled me from sharing a screen. Do you think maybe you need to make me host again? I don't know. Should I go back to?
Let me check. Try now.
Okay. Oh, there we go. There we go. Are we good? Can we see?
Yes.
Yes, okay, great. So let's just move. So before we start and dive right into it, I like to use externalizing as a way of, almost with any kind of behavioral difficulties that walk through my door with children, even with some adults. But I would like you just to have a moment, just to have some thoughts, and I'm going to ask you some questions just to try out externalizing for yourselves before we start applying it, and I'll show you how I do it with children. So for now, I would just like you to think of a time when stress or anxiety interfered with your life. Okay, and just, if you'd like to share your thoughts, you can. Otherwise, just think about it for yourselves. And then I'd like you to think about the things that you have already done that have worked well. And then we're going to add these to your list. And in the solution-focused way, of course, we want to keep doing the things that are working and abandon those that are not. Okay? So just give some thought about what has been working in managing that. Okay, we've got some thoughts. And now, just to get a better understanding on externalizing, I want you to think about, how did you become anxious? Okay, what are you most anxious about when you are anxious? Which of your current qualities come from being anxious? How does it feel? And thinking about those questions and your answers to those questions, how does the future look for you right now? Just take a minute to think about those. Okay. And then I want to just take a little spin of it. So let's change anxious from being an adjective that's describing you and change it into a noun, anxiety. Okay, so it's almost like an object that you can touch. And then we're going to answer these 3 questions. Okay, in what context is anxiety most likely to take over? Okay, what has anxiety gotten you to do that is against your better judgment? And have there been times that you can get the best of anxiety? Times when anxiety could have taken over, but you kept it out of the picture. So maybe just take a minute or 2 to think about that. So it's no longer describing you, but it's just something outside of you. Thinking about it in that way, as a noun, as opposed to something that's describing you, how do you feel now? And what seems possible in regards to anxiety in your particular situation? And how does the future look in regards to anxiety? And the most importantly, how's your experience with anxious different to anxiety for you? And tell me, has it been useful to think about it a little bit differently? Yeah? Okay. So that's just a little exercise of thinking of it outside of yourself, as opposed to being one with the worry or with the anxiety. And I'm going to use the term anxiety and worry interchangeably, obviously. And I think sometimes anxiety just has a really bad rep in a way, because we just use it so loosely. You know, anxiety, if you really look at it, is very, you know, very particular, the symptoms, what's happening, when right now any kind of worry that we see, especially in our children, we immediately label it as anxiety. Any kind of emotional discomfort, hesitation to do things, having a little bit of worry, we tend to at times jump straight to, you know, the child has anxiety, as opposed to, you know, a little bit of worry is not so bad, and it helps you to cope and to problem solve and to get to the next, you know, to get to your goals and to your hopes in certain areas. But we'll discuss that a little bit further. So my best hopes is that, if we can discuss my best hopes instead of yours, because we would need a 2-hour workshop at this point in time, which we don't have, is for you to walk away with a couple of tools that you can add to your toolbox. Whether you are dealing with your own child who might have anxiety, whether you're dealing with your own anxiety, or whether it is a student or a client that's walked through your door. And one of the things, which is a solution-focused thing to do, and I use it often with children, especially because it's so tangible, is from scale of 1 to 10, 10 being I'm an expert at dealing with my child, my students, or my clients' worries, and 0 being the opposite, just to think about where you are now. And let's hope that's changed, or maybe it has by the end of this talk. Okay, so I'm going to just, when we get started, I'm going to run very quickly through, obviously, how anxiety presents itself in children, and what is what we observe often in children, and how it can be misinterpreted as times and misdiagnosed when we look at the medical model, of course, and how then we can use solution focus and externalizing to help children foster the good anxiety, and then also to manage the bad anxiety. Okay. Okay. So the most typical is the somatic symptoms that we know about, right? The headaches, the tummy aches, the nausea, And what appears to be, and this is often in children that get referred, is that they're oppositional, right? The oppositional or the aggressive is often a description. They don't get referred for being anxious or worried. And once we engage and we talk about best hopes, that you realize that actually the child is experiencing anxiety. There are worries that are standing in his way, and the loss of control is causing this aggressive type outbursts, right? And the oppositional behavior. Then is the typical panic, the worries about tests, the performance anxiety, whether it is in a sporting environment where they're trying to get into a sports team and they've got a game to play, or whether it's test exams or going to a birthday party. We spoke about aggressive outbursts. Chronic fatigue, often we see this in older children and teenagers when they're experiencing anxiety, low concentration and short-term memory. And often this then goes hand in hand with ADHD, as in is misdiagnosed. Often kids are referred to me either for assessments or for therapy, and the worry is that specialty teachers are worried that they're ADHD, but they're not. It's usually anxiety that is causing that lack of concentration, that they're being scatterbrained, kind of not being able to remember things, short-term memory is not great, and it's not necessarily a memory difficulty. Although, that being said, we all know that anxiety and learning difficulties and ADHD can often present in a comorbid way. So we need to be mindful of that, of course. Disruptive behavior is very often signs of anxiety and feeling worried about either socially or academically, trouble falling asleep or staying asleep, tearfulness, being extremely needy, over and above what is appropriate for their age, biting nails, pulling hair, trouble answering questions in class. And the most prevalent one that we see is the behavior at home and at school is completely different, right? Either they keep it together beautifully at school and then they come home and the wheels come off because this is where I feel safe and I can allow my feelings to show, or they are not able to contain themselves at school. It's just overwhelming. Overstimulating, overwhelming, is just too difficult. But at home they're feeling comfortable, they're relaxed, and the behavior is very different. And then, of course, task avoidance. And that we need to be careful because it could also be learning difficulties at the same time, right? That while we're avoiding the task, is it the anxiety around not knowing how to do it? Or is it just that we're feeling it's about perfectionism and we want to be good at it and we're worried that we're not going to be, or we're going to fail? And then there's the constant need for reassurance. Over and above what's appropriate, for, obviously at each developmental phase and at each age, that will vary. So as clinicians or as teachers or parents, we just need to be mindful of that. So there's obviously, I spoke about, I'm just going to click on all of those. Is that developmental anxiety. So at every developmental phase, there's some level of anxiety that's healthy and it's normal, because we need a certain level of anxiety to move to the next developmental phase when it comes to children, right? So just very quickly, from birth to 18 months, there's that, that healthy attachment versus anxious attachment that happens with the caregiver. So that's normal, when the child hits the 9-month mark and they don't want to separate from their mum or the primary caregiver, and they get really anxious. So that's normal, that's typical, we expect that. From 18 to 36 months, when they want to go outside and they want to explore and they want to find out about their world, and to have the freedom to do that, obviously within the appropriate boundaries, to explore and see that the world is not a scary place, as opposed to having that fearful kind of view of the world. We don't want that to happen. And often we've seen, and research has shown, that if children are sort of have that fearful view and are kind of approach the outside world in that fearful way and don't feel safe to explore and find out about new things and make mistakes, fall down, hurt themselves, get up and be okay, you often see kind of sensory integration difficulties happening, mostly because they've avoided having that sensory input and that integration happening and developing naturally. Then from 36 months to 48 months, you have the need to, the child need to be independent, really. They need to define themselves. That is when the tantrums happen, of course, versus the false self, versus the child that is always pleasing, that's always showing one face, to the family members or to people around them, but actually feeling something a bit different. And we're seeing signs of anxiety coming through there. 2.5 to 6.5 years, the need to achieve. That's when, mommy, look at this. Look what I did. Constantly wanting reassurance and wanting acknowledgement, which is normal. But then when it goes to a point that it just becomes like they can't do it and they don't feel like they're able to achieve it by themselves, that could cause obviously difficulties. And the need to share versus alienation. I want to share not just the stuff that I'm doing and the things that I have, but I want to share my time and my thoughts and my ideas with you, and having the freedom to do that. So obviously working working with children many years ago, I was searching for the anxiety-free child. Most parents are searching for the anxiety-free child. How do we eradicate anxiety completely? And through lots of work and reading and just doing and making a lot of mistakes, you come to the point of realizing there is no such thing as an anxiety-free child, because there's no such thing as an anxiety-free human, right? So if there was an anxiety-free child or an adult, well, we wouldn't care about anything. It wouldn't drive us. It wouldn't motivate us. We wouldn't get up in the morning and get dressed. We wouldn't prepare ourselves for this conference. Nobody would care, right? And that's what we need to remember. Just how anxiety and worry and stress affects us is the same way with kids. And they just don't have the words to express it, so we see it in behavior. It drives us to the next developmental phase. And instead of, and that's what I often speak to parents, and even if we in a supervisory sort of peer supervision kind of setting, talk about, we're not trying to eliminate anxiety, because that's impossible. The point is to manage anxiety. And often with managing a child's anxiety, it's very important to look at the significant people, the meaningful people that are around them, right? That systemic look that we need to do, which in solution focus, we keep in mind at all times. We need to remember that the child is not just on their own and they cannot change their behavior on their own. The whole system needs to change. And so how will other people, what do we notice about the significant people's behavior changing in order for the child's behavior to change? So here it is very important to help parents to manage their anxiety in order for the child to manage their anxiety, right? So how would they be behaving towards their child? But we're going to be talking more about that. So keeping that in mind, then is of course the parts that we can't control. And what is anxiety, and why do children experience so much anxiety these days? And a lot of it's got to do with control, right? It's the loss of control. If I feel like I can't control my environment, what the decisions I'm making, life is happening to me, my anxiety levels are going to escalate. And that happens more with kids, because of course they're kids and we need to guide them and we need to show them how to do things, but the way we do it and the way to put them in a position where they feel they've got some level of control is what's important. And that's what we want to focus on, to give them that empowerment to make decisions and not be stuck in their worries and in their anxieties. So the one thing is the external life events. We can't control those, right? Those just kind of happen. Some things are completely out of our control, and we need to just learn to manage those, or help our children manage them in bite-sized pieces. A big one in a child's world is divorce, of course. It's one of the most traumatic and one of the most impactful things that can happen, besides just loss of lives of their parents, which would be extremely traumatic. Trauma with children, we need to be very careful, because trauma is extremely subjective, right? It's the perception of the person who's experiencing the situation and the trauma. So for some kids, there was research that was done, a brain of a child who was that was very sensitive to noise and sound and like aggressive voice and shouting, and a child who'd been in a truly traumatic experience, like a very traumatic car accident or armed robbery. It had impacted them almost the same. You see, it's very subjective, the kind of trauma that a child can experience and the level of anxiety that it will cause. So we need to be really mindful of that when working with kids. And that's what I like about solution focus, like we've heard throughout the day, about being respectful and hearing that this for me may not be traumatic, or for my child may not be a traumatic experience, but for you it was a traumatic experience. You know, that each situation is different. Changing grades, moving from one grade to the next, not making your soccer team that you've been trying out for, immigrating, which is so prevalent. We see it often, especially here in Canada. Families are coming, thousands and thousands of families. There's that adjustment, changing schools, or being ostracized by friends. All of these things are external life events that can increase the child's level of anxiety or they're the catalyst for the anxiety, the ball of anxiety to start rolling. And the careful management of that is extremely important. Whether you're the clinician, the parent, or the teacher, to be open and honest is really important. Just like one of the speakers was saying earlier today, is like we don't, and what got me to love solution focus is that you speak about the elephant in the room, right? You haven't just come to play with this nice lady, you know, you've come and you're actually engaging in dialogue. You're engaging in conversation, and it's got a point. You've got hopes. That's why your best hopes, which give you your goal, although we don't like to talk about goals, but it essentially gives you a target to work towards. And that's what I find really helpful with kids, especially whether they're little or whether they're teenagers. Especially with teenagers, they feel like they're working towards something and gives them more control. So acknowledging the worry. So we're not viewing it as a weakness, but rather as a child's resources. They're trying to enable and activate their resources and the strength to cope. Okay, and that is also the thing that I love with solution focus, is that it's their strength. They're trying to cope, and that's what it is. It's not a weakness that's there. Now, how can I help you manage that? Predictability is extremely helpful. As we know, children respond really well with what's coming next, to be able to create that for them wherever possible. And closure. So by closure, I mean, whether you're dealing with divorce, trauma, or upcoming massive change that's coming that you're worried about, to be able to talk through with them at a level that they can understand at each step. And what can we do to make it better? What do you need to feel better about moving house? You know, what is it that's making you not feel okay? And what are you excited about? To be able to kind of acknowledge all of those things, as opposed to what we tend to do sometimes with kids, which means, oh, it's going to be fun. It's going to be so much fun. It's a new place, new neighborhood, but the child is still attached, right, to where they are, and they're feeling what they're feeling. And the freedom to communicate is obviously the key there, whether it's with the therapist to feel like they can communicate openly, and with their parents, which is a key factor here to be able to get success with children and anxiety. And when you manage all of these carefully, then anxiety subsides and emotional functioning improves. And that's what we want. We want them to be able to recognize the feelings that they have, how it makes them feel, what do they want instead of the feeling that they don't like, the worry. And that instead of is really, really important for kids to be able to use that language and internalize that. And then obviously you've got to explore all the other emotions that can help them for them to choose from. So they have a library, you know, this glossary to choose from. Separating the child from Mr. Worry. So we're going to now get into the crux of helping the children with managing their anxiety by externalizing. So often they come and they are just, you know, if they're older and they can verbalize, it's like, I'm constantly worried. I can't think. My brain just shuts down. Or it's a little child who just has aggressive outbursts, gets frustrated and breaks things, right? So they feel like they're bad kids. Often, you know, I behave badly, that's why I'm here. When I ask them, why do you think you're here? And so the first thing I like to do is to separate the child from the anxiety. And how do we do that is through a series of guided questions, right? So that they can gain control, because I want them to feel empowered to do it, not for them or their family to feel like they've got to constantly come back to the therapist, come back to me so that they can feel okay and in control, but that they can feel like that they're okay and in control. Right? So we start by asking, you know, why do you think you're here? And they give me an answer. Oh, I don't behave well in class. I'm always in trouble. Why do you think that happens? I don't know. My teacher doesn't like me. Right? And then you're going to say, oh, is there a time that your teacher does like you? And so, you know, that your teacher does react well to you. And you start the conversation. So even if I found you start at a really arbitrary place, you can always bring it back to what the mom or dad has hoped for, and then align it with what the child's best hopes are, because that's the trickiest part, really, right? So why am I stuck? Why has this frozen? Sorry, my slides seem to have frozen for some reason. Kathy, do you have control on that side by any chance?
I don't.
You don't? Okay, hold on. It doesn't even want to. There we go. Hold on. I'm going to just go back to there. Has the screen changed for you guys?
No.
Okay, let me go there. And now?
Nope.
Nope. I don't know what.
Stop sharing and then
Maybe sometimes if you click your mouse, I think it happened. The same thing happened to me.
Yeah.
Click your mouse. I don't know. Sometimes it works. I don't know.
Yeah, just suddenly it seems like everything's okay. So it brings down the top control bar down, but that's all it seems to do. Okay, I don't know what to do here.
What if you take it down and put it up again?
The thing is, the whole screen is frozen. Like I can't even see my mouse moving around here for some reason.
Oh.
That is very strange. One sec. Let me see if I can. Well, this is. Let me just go back to. See, just the top bar falls down, comes down when I put my mouse over it. I'm going to pause share and then start it again and see if it works. Okay, and then resume. This is very strange.
You might have to switch off and switch on.
You think so?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I can't even leave the meeting. The thing is like completely.
No, don't leave the meeting, but take down your screen and so that we can see you again, and then try and put your screen back up.
That's what I'm hoping to do, but
Okay.
it just won't do it. There we go. Okay, hold on. There we go. Stop share. Are we back?
Okay, so now we don't see the screen.
Do you see
Nope.
me? Is it back to normal?
Yeah, we see everybody. So try and do the share.
Yeah, let me do that now for you.
Maybe go one step further so that you're not stuck on that same line.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, let me go back in here.
Okay. And we're back to slide 1.
Back to slide 1. Yeah, I can see that, but then
Okay.
Okay, I know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to close. I'm going to stop share again, and I'm going to close it. Sorry about this, guys. I don't know why this is doing that. I'm going to go in here. Oh, it's the PowerPoint that's busy having a moment. See that. Okay. And then, I don't know why this thing is frozen. This is extremely frustrating. Okay. There we go. I'm going to try and, oh, it's busy doing something. You know, when the thing just keeps going round and round.
It's called buffering.
It's doing that. Okay. I don't know why it's doing that. Okay, let's stop that. Seems to have stopped. Let's see if it'll share now. Share screen. Okay. All right, sorry everyone. I don't know why this is happening. Okay, back to slide 1. No, okay. You know what I can do? I can just stop sharing and I'll just speak.
Okay.
Is that okay? Sorry about that. All right, I can just open it on this side. All right, so we were on the series of questions, right? Sorry.
Yes, about Mr. Worry.
About Mr. Worry. Okay. So now I gotta try to remember absolutely everything. Hold on one sec. You can't see my screen now, can you?
No, we just see you talking to us.
Okay. I'm just trying to do it with the other one. Trying to cheat and see if it works. Anyway, so when you want to separate it from Mr. Worry, asking the series of questions like, What does worry tell you when worry is with you is one of the first things that I ask the children. And they often say to me, you know, worry says that I can't play with my friends, or children are going to be mean to me. And worry says to me that I can't, that you don't know the answer. So those are the things that when worry is with me, that's what worry says to me. What does worry make you do? Worry makes me hit other kids. Because I feel angry, because I feel like they don't like me, so I hit them, and then I know it's a bad thing, but I just do it. Okay, what happens when worry is not with you? Okay, so that's the exceptions, right? We want to get them to think about the exceptions, think about when is it that for them to realize there is times for them that they are without worry. So when is worry not with you? Worry is not with me when my mom's with me, for example, or worry is not with me when I have my favorite teddy with me if they're a younger child, or worry is not with me when I'm with my particular friend in terms of a teenager. Okay, great. And what happens when worry is not with you? How do you behave when worry is not with you? When you are in control, what are you able to do? And that is when kids stop and they have to think, and you often are faced with that. And when you work with kids, you know, you're faced with that, I don't know, initially. Right? I don't know what I do. And then it's the whole thing of sticking with them at the time. It's like, well, if you did know, what would happen? Or I get really particular and I go, think about that one time that worry wasn't with you in the last day or in the last 2 days, you know? And if they're older, they might get a bit, because they don't want to think or because they're feeling anxious, they'll just go, I don't remember. So then you think, okay, close your time, go into a time machine, pretend you're in a time machine, let's go back in time and think about a time where worry wasn't with you. Maybe it was a long time ago, or maybe it wasn't a long time ago. You just want that one particular time that worry wasn't with them. And then they come up with the situation. And you go, okay, when worry wasn't with you at that time, how did you do your work? Yeah? When worry wasn't with you at that time, how did you interact with your friends? That was good, that you liked. And then they give you, they'll give you a series of answers, and then you can hook everything else onto that, right? And then you get them to realize that there are times that worry is not with you. If worry had to be gone, what feeling would you have instead of worry? What would be with you instead of worry? I had one child once that said, if worry wasn't with me, I would have Mr. Jazzy with me. And I was like, okay, what's Mr. Jazzy? This was like maybe a 7-year-old. Mr. Jazzy just likes to dance, and Mr. Jazzy loves to just have a good time. And, you know, and you think, okay, so, and when Mr. Jazzy is with you, how do you behave when you're around your sister, or when you're around your friends, or, you know, whatever? Oh, no, I just have fun with them. I can listen to them. I can interact with them. I don't shout. Okay, so you are able to not shout. You are able to just play. And for them to see that there's a time that they can do all of those things in a really, really nice, in a really good way. Even with little tiny kids, it works so well. I remember when the first time my husband and I came to Canada to just to visit, just to see, we left our kids with my folks, and my son must have been about 3 years old. And so he didn't cope very well with the separation, and he didn't show it because he's an internalizer. He doesn't say anything, at least at that time. Now he's become more vocal. We came back, and suddenly this child needed to go to the bathroom every 30 seconds. Every 30 seconds, we need to get up and go to the bathroom. So day 5, I'm thinking, we've woken up now 18 times in the middle of the night, and I'm thinking, this is not working. So I said to him, you know, I think you know that you know when to go to the bathroom, because his thing was, I'm gonna make an accident. And that's what he didn't want to do, right? He was worried about accidents. I said, I don't think you're worried about the accident. I don't think that you don't know how to use the bathroom. I think Mr. Worry is telling you that you're going to make an accident, but you know when you need to go to the bathroom. So he goes, yeah. So I said, what does Mr. Worry tell you? No, Mr. Worry tells me I'm going to get into huge trouble if I make an accident. Now, this kid has never had an accident or been in trouble for it. So it's a very strange thing, right? And Mr. Worry says to me that, that if I make an accident, you're going to be angry with me, and then you're going to go away. So then it all came back exactly to what he was worried about, right? So I said to him, so now it's 2 a.m. We can't exactly draw worry and externalize him, which I'm going to talk about now. So I said, where is worry? Is worry with you right now in this room? So it's a dark room. And he goes, yes, he's standing right over there. So he points to the door. I'm like, right. So we're going to kick worry out. Worry is not going to stay in this room right now. Can we kick worry out? Do you want worry to stay because he's stealing your sleep? And he goes, no, I don't want him to steal my sleep. I'm so tired. Okay, good. So can we get rid of worry? Yes. What is worry scared of, do you think? And he says the dogs. So we had 2 dogs at the time. So we got the dogs into the bedroom. I said, right, show Eva where worry is. And he did. And so Eva, obviously the dog is pointing to wherever the child is going, and she did. And so his dad came, I was there, and we all chased worry out of the room. And he thought this was the funnest, most brilliant thing in the world, and he felt better and went to bed. It didn't get rid of eradicate anxiety in his life, but it made him helped him manage that point in time to be okay to go to bed. And the problem with going to the bathroom every 30 seconds kind of went away. Because the next day we could engage in conversation about, you know, how do we know when we need to go to the bathroom? Do we feel it in our body? Do we feel it in our mind? Do we listen to the voice, or do we know when we need to go? You know, all the things that he already knew, because you know when to go to the bathroom, for example, for him. And then we got to have conversations, obviously, around us being away and him feeling alone. Another thing that I ask children, especially ones that are a little bit older, is that, so what is worry telling you? And they talk about, you know, worry tells me about, worry tells me I can't do this, I can't do that, or children hate me, or they don't like me, and they don't want to play with me. And I say, is this true every single time? You know, does worry tell you the truth every single time? Because I want them to think about their thinking, right? And they often say, no, it's not true every single time. Oh, okay. So can we say that worry is not the most trustworthy person, is not the right kind of thing to listen to? And they go, yes. And then what I do often with them then is when after we've had this discussion is like, right, let's make a concrete, tangible thing that represents worry. And sometimes children at that time like to say, it's not Mr. Worry that comes to visit me, actually. It is, it's a spot of nervous, or it's Miss Scaredy Cat, whatever they want to name it. It doesn't matter, as long as they can name it and they can be happy with that name, right? And what I get them to do is then to either paint worry, to draw worry, to create worry out of clay. I just want something tangible that they can see is outside themselves. And when worry comes to visit you, worry makes you do these things, as opposed to these behaviors are inherent in you and it's a problem with you. Does that make sense? So that's the kind of conversation we have. And then what I do is the fun part. So we either take a balloon or something. So often I like to use a balloon. So we take it and we blow all the worry into the balloon. And then we kick the hell out of worry. So they throw worry to me, I throw worry to them. The game is not to let worry touch the ground, because we're in control, not worry, right? I want them to feel like they're in control. And they get to say all the things they want to say when they have the feeling that they want instead of worry, when their brave is with them, right? So they say things like, you can't take away from my sleep. You can't tell me what to say, because often they say, you know, worry makes me say those things. When worry is with me, that's when I say these bad things. You can't stop my brain from thinking. All the things that make them feel in control, I decide who to play with. They shout and they hit worry around, okay? And it's fun and it kind of distracts them in the moment as well, right? Then we pop worry and worry disappears for that moment, right? But what we have done in that time is remind them of all the times that they can be without worry, that they have played with their friends and they haven't been worried about a situation, that they have gone onto the playground and things have been okay. There has been that one time that they made a good connection. There was that one time that they got to go upstairs in the dark by themselves and fetch a toy without having mom to go with them. All of those things are really helpful for them to remember, because they forget very easily. And we need to remind them and front load them with that. Another thing that I like to do is like write everything on an aeroplane, like for all the children, and they kind of bash it into the wall or they fly it away. I used to make worry sticks. So we made worry sticks, these beautiful worry sticks, and they used to tell their worry to the worry stick. I say used to, because one very clever child once told me, I don't want to make a worry stick. I want to make a brave stick. Because the worry stick was something that did the worrying for them, so they could carry on with life, right? And they could have these little ice cream sticks that they decorated beautifully and carried around with them. However, that reminded them of worry, of this particular child. And she said to me, I want to make a brave stick and write all the things that make me brave on it. And all the things and from little things like holding mom's hand, or having dad's shirt with me when I'm sleeping because then I can smell him, to things like, if I think of my dog while I'm in class, I feel better. Or if I just tap my hand on my lap, I feel better about being able to concentrate, because they're very anxious about not being able to focus what the teacher is saying. All the things that make them feel good, from little things to big things, are right on the back of this, like those bigger ice cream sticks, and he did it with her. And that's what she called to be her, it was her brave stick that made her feel good. Another thing that I like to do is the paint worry, and they take water balloons and they smack water balloons against the painted drawing, and they'll watch it kind of melt away. All of those actions, although as you're listening, you might be thinking very destructive kind of stuff, but it's not the distraction or the aggression, but it is the externalizing of it. Remember, with the loss of control and anxiety comes a huge level of frustration, and a little bit of those angry outbursts that are coming out. And what is useful for them to do is to get it out. So even with boys or girls, it doesn't really matter, but all the kids that really want to get it out and they feel frustrated with the lack of control that they're experiencing, I take a soccer ball, or just like even those like plastic balls that you get from the dollar store, and on it with a Sharpie, you can write all the things that make worry come, and they just kick the daylights out of it, right? They kick it against the wall, they kick it against the tree, we kick it amongst each other, and they get to say all those affirmations, all those reminders that reminds them of when they are in control, of what they can be in control of. Another thing that works really well is I ask them in our conversations that we're having, is that to kind of paint a picture for them of, when you're in control, this is how you behave, right? So when Brad is in control, Brad is able to do X, Y, and Z. Brad is able to remember his manners. Brad is able to greet his teacher. Brad is able to answer questions in class, right? Brad is able to say no to his friend without pushing. When worry is with Brad, then Brad does this, this, and this. That's not really good for him, right? So who do you want to drive the Brad bus? Does Brad get to drive the bus? Or do we want worry to drive the bus? Is it fair that worry is taking away from your fun and from your breaks, because, recess, you have to be inside all the time because you keep getting into trouble, all of that stuff? Is it fair? No. So it's the whole process of getting them to think about their thinking. So yes, there's a lot of executive functioning things that are coming into play here, but it's a lot of actually highlighting the exceptions and the resources and bringing them to the fore, saying there are times that you can do this. Let's do more of those. And what will happen? And then the question comes, who will notice first? Okay, I put first with little kids because, they always want to be first. And as soon as you say first, they kind of think about it. But if I say, who do you think would notice? They often give me, I don't know. But if I say, who do you think would notice first? Then they're able to think. And it goes from my dog, my cat, some kids have said, to whether their grandparents would notice first, or their siblings, or their parents. And this is where it's the extremely important part of bringing in those significant people or pets in the child's life, right? You're bringing them into the whole therapy process. So I don't do the traditional come in for family therapy. When a child is referred to me for a behavioral difficulty, I like to work with the child by themselves for 1 or 2 sessions, because then they get to have control, right? They get to voice what their best hopes are. We get to work on their hopes and what they would like, and give them a little bit of control and autonomy there. And then that usually aligns well with what the parents' best hope is, because they do want the best for their kids, right? And through conversation, we can help parents also we spoke earlier about realistic goals when we were in one of the other workshops, to make those goals realistic and align. And then the parents are invited, or the cat or the dogs are invited to come in and engage in these activities, or the homework that the tasks that they go and do. I want you to go and notice all the times that you were able to think before you said something, when you felt upset, all the times that I'm just going to use my dog's name, that Eva helped you, came closer to you and wanted to snuggle with you because you were able to just contain your body a little bit better. I want you to notice how many times that happens. Okay. Or tell mom and dad to notice. Mom, I want you to notice and tell Brad all the times that he was able to, when he stuck with something and he managed to finish it, even if it was just for a few minutes. All those tiny little moments. Basically, all the things we know about solution-focused therapy that we're doing in the session is to give those little bits to the parents to be able to do at home and reinforce it, because then they feel that active part of it. And then they come back feeling so much better because they've made it, they work together. The parent feels empowered, and so does the child, of course. And then I just wanted to, sorry, no, this is still not cooperating. I wanted to show you something, but now I can't. And the one thing that I do like to do when kids get stuck, have you guys watched the new Mary Poppins? So you know that song where Meryl Streep does Going Turtle, like when they all go upside down? That works so well when, especially even with older kids, when they get stuck in the, in thinking, you know, I don't know, you know, when they get stuck in the I don't know. And I've done everything. So now we've done the whole describing how I don't know is kind of this sheet that comes over your mind and stops you from thinking. You know, we're going to open the door and kick I don't know out the door so we can just think, because I know you can. None of the stuff is working. And I play that little snippet. I actually have it saved on my computer and I just play it for them. Just turning turtle. If you just look at things from an upside down perspective, just from a different way, even for parents, it's a nice way for them to click. Just from a different perspective and reframe it, you can see the different ways that you can approach it, and there are ways out of it. There's always a plan to be made. And if nothing else, if I get nothing else across to the kids, is that one thing, that there's always a plan to be made. You're never stuck in a corner. All we got to do is we got to think how we can do it differently. And if we had to do it differently, how would it be good for us? You know, if you had to do this differently, how can you do it so that it's good for you and those people that you care about that are around you? Because remember, at different ages, we're very egocentric, right? We're thinking about ourselves, how it's affecting me, it's me. And we need to get them to think a little bit beyond that. And then realize if you do that, then the others, the adults in your life are going to start noticing those changes too. Who's going to notice first? You know, what do you think your teacher will notice first? Do we still have time? We do, hey? Yeah. Okay. The session ends at 4, right? Our time, yeah. Okay. So that is really the crux of what works, and obviously focusing on not comparing kids to their peers. If you're the teacher, whether you're the parent, to their cousins, to anything. To have respect for that problem is that problem, to acknowledge it. So acknowledgement is the biggest thing, acknowledging what it is. And I often say what they can't have, and you give them, you acknowledge what they want, and then you give them what they can't have. You give them what they can't have in reality and fantasy. So when the child is saying things like, I don't want to go to school today, which my son was doing at one point, and it's like, yeah, no, it would be great to stay home, especially here in Vancouver where it just rains constantly. Staying at home would be amazing and watching a movie. But it's Tuesday, right? Tuesday, I got to go to work, you got to go to school. But when we get home, we got nothing planned this evening. We can just watch a movie tonight, and we can have hot chocolate tonight. But right now we all have to go to school. But it would be cool if we could all stay at home. So it's that sort of not fighting your child or not fighting the client on what they want, is being that respectful of their best hopes, right? So the best hope might be something completely unrealistic and in dreamland, and to kind of go with it and say, that would be really cool if that was possible, wouldn't it? That would be awesome. But in reality, we can't live on a spaceship that just hovers around the school and you don't have to go in. That's not something that's possible. Firstly, we don't have the technology for it. And eventually you're going to get bored because you're going to need your friends, right? So you kind of play with them with that and then bring it back down. So let's imagine if we could have kind of a spaceship kind of situation in class, and you were feeling the way you wanted to feel in class, like you would in a spaceship about the school. What would those feelings be? Yeah, so you're bringing it back slowly into reality and filtering it in. So you haven't dismissed their idea, because their ideas have been dismissed over and over again, or at least that's their perception, and that's why they're in the situation that they're in at this point in time. And you got to help them move forward and not focus on that. So that's really the aim of how I use, I know it's not a purist form of solution focus, but using solution focus principles in there. And of course, scaling comes in often, especially with older kids. I find little kids like it as long as I've got something really tangible. I remember I attended a Pamela King workshop a couple of years ago, and she had this beautiful little pegboard that she was using, and I stole that idea straight away and used it, and it was great. But and sometimes it works, and sometimes the concept is just too much, depending on their age, right? But and so working with something tangible like a clay model that they can feel like they have power over and they can create, and sometimes they create their brave next to their worry, you know. So they make a worry model and then they make the brave model, and what would this brave model be able to do? And when brave is with you, what are you able to do? And you just constantly redoing those same things over and over and over again, because if it's working, you do more of it. If it's not working, you switch gears, and then you get the parents in as well, always, to be able to be on the same page. Because as we know, that language is so important, that instead of language, what we would want to do instead of that, you know, you are able to actually behave in the way that you want to behave. I saw you do it earlier today. What do you need in order to be able to do that, as opposed to having stop doing that, which I'm still guilty of doing a lot with my own children, but we hope not to do that. Anyway, I'm so sorry that the slideshow, I don't know, my computer is still busy thinking and buffering and doing its thing, that happened. Are there any questions? Is there, this PowerPoint, I will make it available. I will definitely, as soon as I have fixed the glitch, it will get sent to you, definitely. Any questions? Was that useful? Okay, great.
You have some comments coming in on the chat, but there seem to be more thank yous other than will the PowerPoint be available? So if anybody has a question, that would be a good place to put it. Lots of complimentary comments.
Thank you.
Okay, somebody did ask a question. What age do you first do scaling, Sammy?
So what age?
Mm-hmm.
What age do I do scaling at?
Yes.
I like to, from about 8 or 9, I like to do it then, because I feel like they really understand the concept. And then it's nice, because then I can go, because I personally love the whole concept of what do you need just to move a little bit forward, right? When you do it with younger than that, not all of them, I don't want to generalize, but when you go younger than that, they often want to go, they always go, I'm 10 out of 10, because they don't want to, they're not really in touch, and they think the more it is, the better it is, and they want to impress you still, right? So they don't stay with that realistic, you know, I'm really feeling rubbish, this is not going well, I'm always in trouble, actually I'm at a 3, you know? And to be able to really utilize the scaling, I find when they're 8 and up, preferably actually 9 and up, but some 8-year-olds can also do it, I just get more out of it. You get more information out of it, and you can give more resources from it.
Okay. And I see Carrie shaking her head, so it looks like that answered her question.
Oh, okay.
And then you have somebody that asked, do you have any ideas specific to adolescents?
With adolescents, I find that whole control piece is really, is the key for you as the therapist or the practitioner or teacher, just to acknowledge the fact that you can see that he or she would like some control, or they feel like they don't have the level of control they would like to have over their situation. To me, acknowledgement is the key, and then to sticking with the I don't knows, because they are so good with the I don't knows, and to not let them kind of get away with it, but reframe your question. And when they're expressing distress, is just to say, you know, I can see that is difficult for you, and I can understand why that's difficult for you. But I challenge them. I like to challenge my adolescents to say, but if we sit in it, is it useful for you? To again, go back to like getting them to think about their thinking is what I work on most, and getting them to be almost critical of, no, critical is the wrong word, to analyze their thinking. a little bit more of how is this going to be useful for me? And if it's not, what can we do that could be a little bit more useful? I don't know if that answers your question.
I'm not sure because I can't see her.
Oh, that's okay.
And then somebody asked, yes, she said thank you. Somebody asked if you could place your contact here or your contact information.
Sure, I can give you my email. Would that do?
I believe so.
Okay. Oh, I think that just went privately as opposed to, went to one person as opposed to everyone. Sorry, I'll do that again. That's my bad. Okay. There we go.
There it is.
Okay.
Okay, and we have one last question. What age would you use the term Mr. Worry up to?
Mr. Worry, I would probably go up to like about age 10. And then thereafter, I would just refer to it as worry. Like worry comes to you. So I would take back the also you got to check the child's maturity level and sort of their defensiveness to what's going on. So often I would just refer to the emotion as opposed to making it more cute or more fun.
Okay, and you got to thank you for that. So that seemed like a good answer.
Oh, you're welcome. You're so welcome. Kathy, thank you so much for your help.
Oh, you're welcome.
And it was lovely to see everybody. Thank you.